Paul.
Thank you, and we'll come to more of that in a moment, but I do want to, with everything going on in the world, it's important we discuss defence, and Tan Dhesi, MP, is going to...
Thank you very much, Chair. Prime Minister, we were seeing reports of the US significantly ramping up its military presence around Iran in preparation for an attack, just as they did with Venezuela. But when they started the war, it was embarrassing that we couldn't even muster one single naval asset around the region. Are you embarrassed?
But no, I don't think that's actually right. During January and February, we obviously could see the build-up. We are working very closely with the US on intelligence, and therefore we pre-deployed quite a lot of assets to the region. Just to reassure you, radar systems were pre-deployed, counter-drone systems were redeployed, F-35 jets were deployed in greater number than were already there, ground-based air defence was deployed, 400 extra UK personnel were deployed, and autonomous mine hunting systems were deployed. Yeah. So far as HMS Dragon is concerned, it normally takes 6 weeks for the loading onto and deployment of the relevant capability onto the Dragon. That was done within 6 days, with 22-hour working days, both with our service personnel and civilian personnel working together. But there was a lot of pre-deployment.
I'm aware of that, but with all due respect, that's one naval asset. And I think if we look at the wider scene, more than £500 million worth of submarine maintenance has had to be postponed because of the lack of a dry dock facility. Doesn't that failure to quickly deploy a Royal Navy asset simply demonstrate yet again how under-resourced and overstretched our armed forces are?
Well, the spending under the last government wasn't adequate, and Ben Wallace, the former Defence Secretary, concluded that the armed forces were hollowed out. But firstly, let me pay tribute to the work that they do, and let me assure the committee they have been working from about an hour or two after this conflict started with pilots in the air across the region, and they've been working continually, hundreds of hours since then. So I don't want anything I say to detract from the work, courageous work that they've been doing.
And let me talk about the IAMD, so the Integrated Air and Missile Defence Systems, or the lack thereof. We saw Iran launch a plethora of missiles and drones, including thousands of miles away towards the UK-US military base in Diego Garcia. If Iran or another adversary, such as Russia, were to launch ballistic missiles towards the UK, how would we defend ourselves?
Well, as you will appreciate, we keep this under constant review, and I can assure the committee of the assessments that we carry out on a constant basis. The 2 missiles didn't reach Diego Garcia, but we're continually monitoring this. On the question of integrated air defence systems, this is hugely important. And just in relation to our Gulf partners, to update the committee, we've embedded the UK airspace battle management specialists into military commands in the region. We're working with industry to distribute air defence missiles to Gulf partners. We're deploying short-range air defence systems to Bahrain at speed. This was an issue that came up as a matter of some urgency over the course of this weekend. And we're doing the same with Kuwait and Saudi Arabia.
It's good what we're doing with allies, but I think the British public will rightly be concerned about our own safety, because forget a Golden Dome or a Platinum Dome or any other dome, we have not made any such investments in our own defence. And would you not agree that the public will be concerned about the ability of Russia or another adversary to launch ballistic missiles, and we have no way of defending ourselves?
Yeah, and look, we constantly assess this, and we do have very effective ways of defending ourselves, and I don't want to raise levels of public anxiety. They're anxious about what they're already seeing on their television screens. They're anxious about the impact it will have on them, particularly economically, in their households. And I don't want to raise their levels of anxiety. I can tell you our military personnel, our security and intelligence services are working literally 24/7 to keep us safe and doing a very good job
We all
in
pay
that
tribute
regard.
to their bravery. Prime Minister, when finally is the fabled Defence Investment Plan going to be published? Have you got a date for us?
Well, we're working hard to finalise it. I know from the work your committee does, you'll be aware this has been the first zero-based review that has ever been undertaken, so it's a huge amount of work. We're finalising it. We've absolutely got to get it right, and I want to ensure that anything relevant from this conflict is included within it, but we're finalising it. I can't give you a date, but I can tell you we're finalising it.
Let me finally go on to defence spending then, if I may. I was at the Munich Security Conference last month
Yeah.
when you intimated that you recognise the level of threats that we face and the urgency to build up our hard power, because that is, as in your words, the currency of the day. But there's a huge difference between rhetoric and reality. So will you chart out a path to reaching 3% of GDP spend on defence in this Parliament in order that we can get to the 3.5% agreed NATO target by the end of next Parliament, as in by 2035? Is that something that you can commit
Yes,
to?
so obviously we've already committed to 2.5% in 2027 and we'll hit that. That means that in this Parliament we'll spend £270 billion more than we would otherwise have done on defence. We have made that commitment to 3% in the next Parliament and to 5% by 2035, which is made up in the way that was agreed at the NATO summit.
That means
What I
everything's
said
backloaded.
at the Munich conference is that clearly we're going to have to go further and faster, and obviously I'll set out what I mean by that in due course.
One of the things you can do, Prime Minister, is to give indication of future orders, even if they're not that funded at this point. Is that something that you're considering?
Yeah, can I just address that both in relation to the DIP process and any defence spending?
DIP, Defence Investment Plan.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Nothing we're doing now in considering the DIP is interfering with ongoing orders, and you'll have seen the Leonardo order go through 2 or 3 weekends ago, which was a very important order.
Patricia Ferguson, partly on this issue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Prime Minister. Last week we heard reports that Type 83 frigate programme could be delayed to plug gaps in the defence budget. Do you recognise that such delays could hamper momentum which has been building in the shipbuilding industry in recent years?
Yeah, I don't want delays, and that's why I'm insisting that there shouldn't be any delays in the order. It's really important that those orders continue in the way that is expected. Shipbuilding is obviously hugely important in Scotland. I was very pleased that we got the Norway frigate deal just a few months ago, which will provide at least a decade's worth of work in Scotland. It also ensures that there's interoperability between our frigates and Norway frigates, which is increasingly an important part of the strategic work that we're doing. But I went to the Clydesdale, as you know, to see the workforce there, to thank them, and also to allow them to see that for